I'm the Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. So today, per usual, during the rainy season, we got a little bit of crappy lighting. This time I'm a little bit to blame because I could not get the outline of this red lipstick right. Don't want to get into how long it took me to put it on. But we're doing my December TBR today. Can you believe it's December? This feels so wild to say. I don't know what happened this year, but it's just gone. I'm gonna be honest though, I'm kind of ready for the new year. This year's been a lot, and I didn't really realize how much it had been until I was kind of reflecting back, and I was like, oh my God, girl, you've been through it. I don't know, the YouTube has been like the one thing that I feel like has actually been going really well. And I've been having such a fun time, and I just love talking with you guys, and I'm getting a little mushy, so I'm not gonna dive into that any further. But just thank you guys all for just like showing up so consistently and all your comments and love and DMs. I love this community so much. You guys are the best. Here's to hoping 2025 is my year. But anyways, let's talk about books. Yeah, that's what you're here for. So I have a lot of travel coming up in December once again. I just really jammed it all into like the last chunk of the year apparently for some reason. So this TBR might be a little bit on the shorter side, and I'll probably be relying a little bit more on audiobooks, even though I really prefer to read physically. That's neither here nor there. Let's get into the books, shall we? So the first one that I want to read is actually one that I think I put on my fall TBR, if I'm not mistaken. It was somewhat recently. And so if you're like, girl, this sounds familiar, it is. It's Break For Me by Ember Nicole. So this is a first in a proper series. So Trista is our heroine. She's been on the run for a really long time. And she has just learned to rely on herself. When a lot of people meet her, they think she's kind of like cold and selfish because she's just out for herself. She's just trying to survive. You know, that gets tiring, just always having to have your guard up and be on the run. This is when she meets a man named Jersey, and this is the man that's been sent to hunt her down. He doesn't really have any connections of his own either. He is known to succeed when everyone else fails. This is your failsafe. This is a guy you send in when nobody else can get the job done. So they really want to get her this time. And he's been sent by an organization that's got some questionable people at best. Oh, we've got two isolated people probably looking for a little bit of connection, but also people that will do anything to survive. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when their worlds connect. So like I said, this had been on my, I believe, fall TBR. I just never got around to it. But it's that book that every time I see the cover or I think, oh, what should I read next? This is the one that always comes to mind. And especially because I just got done reading The Gods of Tomorrow duet by Elle Mitchell. You know how I love Elle Mitchell, but also I'm running out of her backlist. So those are precious, precious babies. So I'm trying to find something similar. Ember Nicole is usually someone that's kind of tied to Elle Mitchell. I know that those two are friends and they have a lot of crossover in their readership. So I'm hoping to find someone that's got like a little something similar just so that I can like find more of that magic that I love in Elle Mitchell's books. But you know what's really wild about this one? I think I even mentioned to this previously too. This is one that has been all over my Instagram. And it's probably because I follow a lot of other readers who love Elle Mitchell because I'm like, we'll get along fantastic. What are your recommendations? I see this all over my Instagram. And yet when I looked at it, it had under 1,000 ratings. And I was just like confused and perplexed by that because I was just like, oh, I thought everyone had read it except for me. Next up is from favorite new author this year, and it's The Bad Guy by Celia Aaron. Every time I say that title, I get that Billie Eilish song stuck in my head, and now I feel like I just got it stuck in your head. I'm so sorry. But anyways, this is Captor Captive. So the synopsis is incredibly vague. I'm gonna be honest, it seems a little bit corny. It seems like it's got more corn than Iowa. Sorry to Iowa, but I am from the Midwest, so I do feel like I have the right to say that. But the hero's just kind of like monologuing about how dark and terrible and oh, he's so bad. It's a little much, but I also know how dark Celia Aaron actually writes because of her Cloister series, so we're giving her a pass on this one. But our hero's name is Sebastian. It sounds like he becomes really obsessed with the heroine despite the fact that she already has somebody. She's got like a good guy, a good boyfriend or partner, but he ends up capturing her. And I think if I'm reading between the lines correctly, she might get away at some point or escapes or something, but that's kind of it for the synopsis. Why I want to read this, I read the Cloister series, I think back at the beginning of the year. Absolutely loved that. It was such a fever dream. I couldn't put those books down. The cliffhangers were absolutely killing me. It's about like a gal that's infiltrating the cult and kind of gets caught up in all of it. So I've always meant to read more from Celia Aaron, and it's just one of those things that I'm like, I kind of do that like, ooh, shiny, that when I was like kind of reflecting back on my reading year, you know, because we're starting to wind down, I was like, how have I not read more from her? She was I connected with her writing instantly. So this is her most popular book, which is why I wanted to try this one, because certainly if I like her stuff already and this is her most popular book, there's a good chance I'm gonna really like this one. And it's, you know, Captive, which is one of my favorite tropes. And one of the top reviews, or at least one of the first reviews that popped up for me, I actually am realizing that might have been a mutual on Goodreads now that I'm saying this, but someone said that it reminded them of Take Me With You. It gave them like kind of Take Me With You vibes. And you know, that's my siren song. Like nothing will pull me faster towards a book than that. So that's why I really want to get to this one. Plus, I just love darker stuff towards the end of the year. I think that's going to hit all my buttons and all my moods for the end of the year. What was that? All right, next up is one that I think I put on my TBR over a year ago, but I was thinking about it just recently. I was like, oh, I should give that book a go because I never end up reading it. Redemption by Kenya Wright. This is a more romantic suspense. It's got kind of some light mafia or organized crime elements, and it is sort of a Christmas romance, kind of. We have, and I hope I say this right, Yoshiro, he has a mafia past. He is seeking solitude after his family is gotten rid of by his former associates. Obviously, they didn't really leave off on good terms. Ebony is our heroine, and she is fleeing an abusive husband, and she is taking her kids with her. They end up in an accident and end up finding refuge at Yoshiro's home, I think, during this snowstorm that kind of caused the accident in the first place. You know, it's a really bad snowstorm. They end up trapped at this estate, and they have her husband like literally looming in the distance, like coming after them. But Yoshiro is from an organized crime background. Do you think he's scared? Absolutely not. He is ready to take him on. But is Ebony ready to trust another man? That's the real question. So why I want to read this bad boy. So I mentioned last year, and I'll mention it again this year because we have a lot of new friends. I am really not much of a Christmas book gal. I'm just not really a super big Christmas person or holidays person in general. So I don't tend to go after a ton of Christmassy storylines in books, but I feel like this aligns more with my actual taste overall, which right now I'm really wanting some mafia and some more organized crime, but I was like, this gives it a little bit of a Christmassy spin. And I did see that I think this is on the Audible Plus catalog, so I think that I'll actually be able to get to this one this year because I'll just consume it that way. Next up, I own this book. Where did she go? All right, next up, I want to get to Shadow So Cruel by Liv Zander. So this is the second book in a duet. I think it's called The Court of Ravens duet. Yeah, this is from the Court of Ravens duet. I read the first book earlier this year. Actually, I don't remember when, but it was in the second half of the year here. It's a dark fantasy, and it's got some like crow shapeshifters. And I think there's either a love triangle or it's MFM. The jury's still, I don't really know just yet, but hopefully we're going to find out in this book. So I don't spoil anything. I'll tell you a little bit about Feathers So Vicious, which is the first book in this duet. Basically, we're dealing with a war-torn kingdom, and we have humans on one side and these crow shifters on the other. Maybe it's just shifters in general. I actually don't know that, but I know that crow shifters are kind of like the main one. So our heroine's name is Galantia, and she's lived a pretty sheltered life. She's from kind of like the upper crust from the human side of this kingdom. The humans need to strengthen their alliances. So she is to be married off in order to kind of strengthen those political ties to another group. On the way, she ends up being abducted by some of these crow shifters, and she finds herself at the mercy of two different men. Sebian, hopefully I said that right, who is kind of protective and is like a little bit more helpful, and also Mylar, no one correct me. And he is violent, volatile, and angry because this is her father's biggest enemy. And he is more than happy to take that anger out on Galantia. So like a little, I mean, it is captive, a little bit of a captive element. So obviously I want to finish up this duet before I forget what's going on in it. Plus I've been kind of on like a small little baby kick of fantasy, just like a whisper. I've been kind of using fantasy more as like a palate cleanser rather than my primary read because I'm usually reading a couple books at the same time. So I think that's how I'm going to treat this one. I seem to have a better time with fantasy when I think of them that way. And there was a big betrayal at the end of the first book. So I kind of want to know what happens there. But yeah, I'm really just feeling some dark fantasy at the moment, kind of between some of my like actual darker books. And for anyone who isn't aware, the Amazon paperbacks have these cool digitally printed edges. How fun is that? And they're like a regular, normal, not special edition price. So definitely check those out. These are very cool. All right, next up we have Born for Silk by Nikki Harris, and this is part of an interconnected series. I think only the first one's been published so far. The series is called like Cradled Common or something like that. This is more of a dystopian dark romance. So we are like thousands of years in the future, and there's been like climate change and like genetic manipulation and war, and it's just like destroyed the planet. So what rose up in its place is called the Cradle, and basically in exchange for life service towards this society, you get resources and security and also a life's purpose. You're more or less kind of like assigned a job. Asher is our heroine, and she is designated for one purpose only, which is more or less that she has to please the king and provide babies to the cradle. The problem is our king, his name is Rome, and he is quite monstrous. He is from a line of very genetically enhanced and manipulated people, or monsters, I guess, who have literally been designed in order to rule in this very brutal dystopian world. He's like really heartless. There's also supposed to be like a huge size difference between these two. So I was really excited about this one when it was getting released back. Was it in the fall? I don't know. I've been meaning to get to this one for a minute, and I've kind of been a little bit more in the mood for some more like kind of dystopian, more cultish type of books in general. And Cynthia, the couple times that I've talked to her about this book, she's like, have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? You're going to love it so much. You need to read it. Have you read it? All signs point to I'm going to have a really good time with this book. All right, next up I have The Darkness We Hide by Bryn Ford. I'm really hoping I get an arc of this, but regardless, it will be released this month on, I think it's December. It got pushed back to December 13th. This was initially planned to be a 4-book series that was interconnected, but I think this is now going to be, this first couple's now getting a duet. So I think it's now going to be 5 books, but it's a new one from Bryn Ford. And this is dystopian. It's kind of got like a cultish element. There's some revenge, found family, and it sounds like kind of like a mild captor-captive storyline. So Gemma is our heroine, and she is trying to get some revenge for something that happened to her. And the last man that she needs to get is actually exiled to this like criminal territory. It's like this wasteland desert called the Lawless Land. In order to go after him, it sounds like she actually ends up getting herself banished as well to this territory. But there's a hitch in the plans because there's some dude running around on a motorcycle that ends up becoming obsessed with her and ends up snatching her, and he ends up bringing her to his gated community. And now he just won't let her go. He claims that it's too dangerous for her to leave, but she thinks he's probably lying and actually trying to prevent her from the entire reason she's there in the first place, to get revenge against this guy. Why I want to read this one. Obviously, if you've been here for a minute, you know that I cannot be quiet for even 1 second or one video about the 4 families and how much I love it. So I wanted to read more from her. I'm excited about this new release. I've been on a dystopian kick kind of for the past like few months. Also, there's a lot of this that sounds kind of similar to the Gods of Tomorrow duet by Elle Mitchell. Once again, I'm completely obsessed with. Sounds like there's kind of like a killer cult element to this. Also some found family, but then like add in dystopian, which is not something that's in Gods of Tomorrow. So I'm just like, it's like that, but like a little bit extra, and from an author I already know that I really like their writing. Plus, I love the synopsis does say that the heroine has fashion colored hair. I love in a heroine, although it does feel a little bit odd in a dystopian because it's kind of like when you watch zombie movies and you see the heroines in heels and you're kind of like, that's just not really that practical. I don't know how you'd keep up with that in a dystopian world, especially in a desert. Well, actually that might keep the color in because you wouldn't wash it much. I'm thinking way too much about this. Okay. This is not the point. One last minute addition, even though it is so dark and I'm so sorry. I don't know anything about this book, so I'm not going to provide you with a synopsis because I want to go in truly knowing nothing. It's Nero by S.J. Tilley. So this is a mafia book, and I've heard it's just absurd, which if you saw my Zodiac Academy vlog, you know has kind of been doing it for me lately. I need a no thoughts, empty head type of read. And I got this recommendation from one of y'all. Thank you so much, Megan. I was like, you have to keep me posted on how it goes. So she slid into my DMs and she's like, okay, the first handful of books, this one, this is how this one goes. The second one, this is how this one goes. So I'm really excited to read this. Hopefully, if I like it, I'll continue on and just have like a new kind of like bingeable series that I get into. Those are all the books that I am hoping to read in December. So now I would love to know what's on your TBR for December. Are there certain subgenres or tropes that you're really looking forward to? If you're into Christmas books, let me know. Like, what are you reading? What are the authors you turn to, or anyone that you know that's releasing something kind of cool? cool for the Christmas season. I'd love to hear any and all of that. Even though I'm not a super big Christmas person, I love seeing other people get excited about Christmas. It's so weird. Why am I like this? With all of that, thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want more content from me. And I really, really hope that I see you on my next video. Bye-bye.